We've all heard this sentence, haven't we? It just kind of hangs there in the air, in comment sections, at family gatherings, even in team meetings. And what usually follows is, well, exactly that, racist. This is where modern racism often begins, quietly, and often sounding deceptively plausible. And that's really the crucial question, isn't it? I mean, how are we supposed to push back against something that dresses itself up as a harmless concern or as legitimate criticism or even as a simple statistical fact? For that, we're going to need a really sharp tool. And that very tool comes from one of the most important thinkers for democracy, Jürgen Habermas. We're going to use his theory as a kind of toolkit to unmask modern racism. So let's dive right in. First, we'll look at why communication is always political. Then we'll unpack Habermas's testing tool. We'll define what modern racism actually is, back it up with numbers to show why this problem is very real, and finally show why our democracy needs us to dissent, and exactly how you can do it.
Okay, so first, the basics. Language is never neutral. It can build bridges or it can build walls. It can be a tool for understanding or a weapon used to manipulate others. Habermas makes a really clear distinction here. On one side, you have what he calls communicative action. The goal here is simple, mutual understanding. You exchange good reasons and you're open to rethinking your own position. This is, the foundation of a healthy democracy. But on the other side, there's strategic action. Here, it's all about achieving your own goals, even if it means using pressure or deception. And this is where it gets interesting, because modern racism almost always operates strategically. Its goal is not understanding. Its goal is exclusion.
So how do we expose this? Well, Habermas gives us 4 universal validity claims. Now, that sounds super academic, I know, but it's actually incredibly practical. Think of them as 4 questions we can ask of any statement that claims it wants to be taken seriously. Let's think of it as our democratic lie detector. The first claim is understandability. In a democracy, we have to be clear about what we mean. But racist communication often does the exact opposite. It uses codes and dog whistles, signals meant to be heard only by a specific group. Terms like Umvolkung, a far-right conspiracy theory about population replacement, or Messermannen, which translates to knife men, aren't neutral descriptions. They are strategically deployed attack words. The democratic response to this? Expose the codes. Ask directly, what exactly do you mean by that? Are you trying to say that some people are less worthy than others?
Second, the claim to truth. Statements about the world have to be based on facts. Racist arguments often use a trick here. They cherry-pick isolated criminal cases to slander entire groups, or they twist statistics by completely ignoring the social context. And just like that, a complex issue gets turned into a simple story with a scapegoat. So the key countermove is to always demand evidence and the full context, because a single cherry-picked fact is a long way from the whole truth.
The third claim is sincerity. It's about whether the speaker's intentions are honest. And right here is where we find that sentence from the beginning, I'm not a racist but, or I'm just asking questions. These are classic self-immunization tactics. They're designed to disguise a derogatory attitude as a brave, neutral question. The best response isn't to speculate about their psychology, but to challenge their logic. If you truly believe in equality, why are you making a sweeping generalization about millions of people? And the fourth and most important claim, normative correctness. Does a statement align with our fundamental shared values, like human dignity and equality? This is where racism always fails, structurally, because every racist statement is designed to treat people as unequal. They're not seen as individuals, but as a problem. Even if the facts were correct, the conclusion, and therefore they deserve fewer rights, is normatively wrong. Here, we have to be crystal clear. Human dignity is not up for debate. Period. So now that we have the tool, let's take a closer look at what we're up against. What do we actually mean by modern racism? The key thing to understand is that today, it rarely talks about biology or race. It's gotten a lot more subtle. You could define modern racism like this. It's a set of subtle, indirect, or seemingly colorblind practices that keep racial inequality in place. Instead of arguing with biology, it argues with supposedly incompatible cultures, different values, or individual responsibility. And this shows up in a few typical patterns. There's culturalization. It's not their skin color, it's their culture that just doesn't fit. Or minimization, which claims racism isn't that big of a deal anymore. There's also naturalization, the idea that it's just natural for people to want to stick with their own kind.
And then there's a really insidious one, abstract liberalism, which uses the idea of equality as an argument against equity, saying things like, everyone already has the same opportunities, so we don't need affirmative action. These arguments sound reasonable, but what they actually do is reinforce existing injustice. And none of this is just some abstract theory. Let's look at the reality in Germany today. The numbers speak for themselves, and they are loud and clear. According to Germany's National Discrimination and Racism Monitor, a staggering 90% of the population acknowledges that racism exists in the country. Let that number sink in for a second. The awareness of the problem is huge. And more than 80% see racism in key areas of life, in the job market, in the housing market, in schools. This is not a fringe phenomenon. It's deeply embedded in the structures of our society. The Federal Anti-Discrimination Agency confirms this. In 2023, they reported a record number of requests for counseling. A huge portion of those cases were about racial discrimination. This shows that for so many people, racism is a painful, everyday experience. So, what do we do? Giving up is not an option. Democracy needs dissent. It is our job to stand up to racist speech, not out of aggression, but as a democratic duty. And here is your toolkit, based on Habermas. In any discussion, just ask these 4 questions. 1. Understandability. What is really being said here? Are there hidden codes? 2. Truth. What facts are being claimed, and what is being conveniently left out? 3. Sincerity. What's the hidden agenda here? And 4. Correctness. Which of our core values are being attacked? And when you hear that familiar complaint, you can't say anything anymore. The answer is clear and confident. Oh, yes, you can. You can say anything you want, but you also have to be ready for reasoned disagreement. That isn't censorship. That's the very essence of democracy. Because in the end, this is about the core of how we live together. And that core is not complicated. Human dignity is inviolable, and it is not negotiable.